Welcome back to Stacking Dennys. I'm Jordan McAbee of RotoBaller, my co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network, and we're going to open two of them because we got some big news,
guys.
Yeah.
2 beer cracks.
We got some big news. Nick, I'm going to hand it off to you on this big news because you helped facilitate this, and I'm just excited to be a part of this. And, yeah, I'm going to let you take this on the big news that we've been teasing about all day today. Today's Tuesday. This will come out on Wednesday, but
take it away. All right,
my friend.
Yes. So, for those of you who have followed myself and Jordan, and you know, I'm not gonna say especially me, but if you followed me, you know, obviously I work for Action Network, and there is a guy by the name of Stephen Malazzi who has contributed to Action Network in the past about betting content, and he actually raced one race in the NASCAR Truck Series last year. Well, he is back for one more NASCAR Truck Series race again this year, and he will be racing at Martinsville, and that'll be in 9 days from when this airs. So it's airing April 5th. That'll be on April 14th, that Friday. And Stacking Dennys is going to be sponsoring his truck. So Malazzi approached me, and I shot it over to Jordan. I said, "What do you think?" And you know, we're not the richest guys in the world, but we scrounged together some money to help sponsor the. I can't call it the Stacking Dennys Ford because we're not guaranteed to be like the primary sponsor or anything, but to be a sponsor of Stephen Malazzi's Ford for Rome Brothers Racing, Josh Rome and all them. Malazzi has worked with them in the past. He raced for them at Mid-Ohio last year. He led one lap. Now
finished 22nd.
Finished 22nd, led one lap. Didn't have the best, speed, but we don't expect that from Rome Brothers. But we want to see them succeed. We want to see them compete. We want to see them race, and we want to see a good kid. He just graduated from the University of Virginia, which, of course, is near and dear to my heart because I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia. Family went there. I would have gone there if they had a music program back when I went to college, but they didn't. So I went to James Madison University instead to major in music, switched to math after 2 years, and decided to stay at JMU because it was a lot easier that way. But so, if you know me, I'm a big Virginia fan, grew up in Charlottesville, Virginia. Malazzi graduated from there. And he wants to, try his hand at truck racing. He did last year, and it's a goal and a dream of his. And I'm very happy to make a good kid help achieve his goal and achieve his dreams and race in the NASCAR Truck Series. And I know Jordan is too. So, when Malazzi messaged me and Jordan and I talked about it, we just had to figure out a way to do it. So Jordan and I have raised some money to make it happen. We don't need to get into all the exact financials, but we've raised between the two of us a substantial amount of money, enough to guarantee that we'll be a sponsor. But we want to do more. We want to become the primary sponsor. We want to become the primary sponsor of the car this weekend, and to do that, we need your help. We would ask humbly and kindly that if you have the ability to, and this is no way, shape, or form an obligation, or feel bad if you don't. This is just us trying to help a good kid out. If you have the ability to donate and raise money for our sponsorship effort, we will be super appreciative. So 100% is going to go straight to this sponsorship. Jordan and I are not getting a cut of anything. We're just helping a good kid out that we have connections with. And so that's kind of where things stand. We need to raise some more money. So if you feel like, Jordan and I have given you good advice over the years, if you feel like we've given you good entertainment over the years, even if you haven't profited, we humbly and kindly ask that you donate what little bit you can. It doesn't have to be a ton. It can be any little amount, 5, 10, 20, 25 bucks if you've got it. If you want to donate more, that's fine too. But if you have the ability to, Jordan and I will put in the YouTube video all the details in that description there. But we will have all the details in the YouTube description. We're still finalizing a couple of the minor details, but it'll be completely 100% ironed out by the time this episode goes live. So, Jordan, what do you think, man?
Yeah. And man, it's awesome. Like I think I'll probably tweet it out and everything else too for everybody listening. you guys can always reach out to us on Twitter. But no, for some reason I wasn't getting my notifications from Twitter. Imagine that Elon Musk broke something again. But I wasn't getting notifications. I randomly opened it up this afternoon, and I saw like 5 messages from you, and I was like, "What is this? What's going on?" And you're like, "We might have the opportunity to be on a truck," and I'm like, "Hell yeah! Like, what do we need to do?" And then all of a sudden, everything escalated, and it's like, you know what? You guys could be the primary, and I'm like, well, this is badass. And now I'm pretty sure I'm going to Martinsville now to see this truck. I've never been to Martinsville. I'm in Ohio, so it's not a super long drive for me, but this has all just come to fruition pretty quick, and it's freaking awesome, man. Like, I'm excited. It's amazing. I can't believe it. Two guys that just randomly met over the internet one day and decided to start a podcast, and all of a sudden, this is happening. And obviously this couldn't be possible without people that listen to us, that have followed us over the years. So thank you guys for giving us this kind of platform to be able to do stuff like this. And it's awesome. That's the only thing I can say about this is it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I'm already committed to going to Long Beach. It's the same weekend as the Long Beach Grand Prix, but it sounds like you'll be able to be there, and I can speak from experience. You're gonna love Martinsville. It's just an amazing track, amazing race. The Truck Series, the Cup Series. I don't know how long you'll be there, but though it is such incredible racing at Martinsville. Even the worst Martinsville race of all time is probably still a good race to be in person, which was last year's, spring race when it was cold as shit, like snowed before the race started for the Cup Series. Obviously, I think this one's going to be better with the lower downforce in terms of the Cup Series, but the Truck Series always puts on a good show at Martinsville. So we are super excited to be able to do that. No sob stories here, but as you know, I lost a brother to cancer, and I know Malazi's dad has been fighting cancer. So it's always been a thing of his to be able to do this for his dad as well, for himself, but also for his dad who helped him with his racing career. So another just one extra special near and dear thing to my heart is just to be able to help him live his dream there, especially for his dad. So just super excited about it, and we had to kick off the show with that. There's nothing cooler than that. And once again, as Jordan said, we can't do this without you guys listening. If we had nobody listening, if we didn't have you guys to keep us energetic and keep us going, we wouldn't be doing it. But you do, and you ask us questions, and you engage with us, and we see your support, we see your help, we see your questions, we see when you thank us, we see when you give us shit. We love it. That's why we do. We love it.
Right.
So now we're humbly asking you, if you have the ability, again, don't feel obligated, but if you have the ability to contribute, we will have all the details in the YouTube version of this podcast. Make sure you follow Jordan on Twitter at FanRacingOnline. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at RotoDoc. Obviously, we'll be tweeting out the details. We'll be tweeting out the YouTube link to this show.
Yeah. You guys see like the GoFundMes that go crazy. Everybody pitches in a couple bucks, and all of a sudden it's massive. And we don't need this to get massive. We just it's going to be awesome if we're able to pull this off and see a stacking Dennys truck out on the racetrack, man.
And it's not going to blow up our podcast. We already know that. We're doing it because we want to, because it's fun. It's literally just something we want to do because it's fun. There's no real kickbacks for us on this. I mean, it's great. We're going to be on a truck. That'll be fun. Maybe we get a few extra listeners, but the idea is we just want to do it because we're excited about it, and we want to help Malazi out, and we want to help Rome Brothers Racing out, and we think it'd just be fun. And it's been a goal of mine to sponsor a car, whether it's an Indycar or NASCAR or something. I've been thinking about sponsoring a car in some way, shape, or form for at least a decade, just not my own, but like in my head, I would be like, that'd be so cool to just do that someday. So, very excited about this opportunity and to, see if Malazi can make the show. There's no guarantee he even makes the show. He has to make his way in. So, we could just see him try to qualify, and maybe they don't, and that's okay. It's worth it. We want to help a kid, very good kid. Steve Malazi is one of the nicest people I've ever met. Literally cannot say a bad thing about him. But it would be so cool to see him have a chance to make this Martinsville race, and maybe he will. I mean, at Mid-Ohio last year, he was in, so we'll have to see.
Yeah. So, yeah, hopefully he's able to do that. And like I said, it's going to be cool to see that Stacking Dennys logo on a truck. But getting back to our normally scheduled broadcast here, we're going to talk about Richmond. Kyle Larson in victory lane after another dominating day by William Byron. I'll tell you what, that kid is ridiculous, off to a ridiculously hot start to start this season. He had some issues. Another guy that could have won that race, Denny Hamlin, he had some issues, so Byron got wrecked. At first, Christopher Bell was blaming it on Ross Chastain. Obviously, we talked about it last week. Ross Chastain really doesn't get the benefit of the doubt when there's anything close, any type of close thing on the track, especially when you get these immediate reactions from these drivers as soon as they get out of the cars. They haven't actually looked at replays. They just know what they've seen. They know what their spotter said. And JGR, that entire organization hates Ross Chastain. So a situation like that, Christopher Bell, I think he did end up apologizing for what he said. He basically said Ross Chastain doing Ross Chastain things. He gave a little half-assed apology, but it is what it is. Kyle Larson in victory lane, though. He was the second highest lap leader in that race. Josh Berry comes home second after a good pit strategy, or a lucky pit strategy call. Same with Michael McDowell, finished sixth. Ross Chastain ran well all day, third. Christopher Bell, Kevin Harvick, we expected those guys to be up there. I know I bet them both outright. Fourth and fifth, Logano, Bowman, Ty Gibbs with another top 10 finish. We got to talk about him a little bit because I don't like that.
Yes, we do.
Ninth place for Ty Gibbs. 10th place for Brad Keselowski, rounding out the top 10. And then we had Truex 11th, who was another guy that could have won that race. JGR didn't have a very good race. I mean, they had a good race, but they didn't have a very good finish. And I want to talk specifically about Martin Truex Jr. because there was a little bit of radio back and forth between him and his crew chief that I have some opinions on. But overall, Jeff Gluck's poll, 80.1% said yes, Richmond was a good race. It ranked second out of 14 races at Richmond in the poll. And the number 2 race of the season so far, Fontana, was 89.9%. What is the similar factor between Richmond and Fontana? Tire wear. Heavily abrasive track, tire wear, exciting racing. I already know what your answer is going to be, but Nick, what did you think of this Richmond race this past Sunday?
Yeah, it was a very good race. I enjoyed it. As you said, I enjoy tire wear. I enjoy strategy. There was strategy involved. It was a very engaging race, and I really enjoyed my favorite thing about the race was I did not have a single outright bet prior to the race. And so I was very engaged in lap times and strategies to find the right live bets. And I think aside from the Harvick 9-1 bet, which probably wasn't the best, I think I like my other 3 live bets. I got Denny Hamlin at 12-1, got Christopher Bell at 10-1, and I had Keselowski at 20-1. I think all those were good bets before. And, right when I bet Keselowski 20-1, he lost fourth gear about 5 minutes later. Not even a joke. It's the Doc Block deal, the Jordan Jinx kind of deal. It just seems to happen that way. But had he not lost fourth gear, I think it would have been, and I mean, I can't predict that he was going to lose fourth gear, but I think it was a good bet still. So I liked those. And I got, aside from Keselowski, I don't think you could get Bell 10-1 at all week. Maybe that was the best you could get him at some point. But so I got him basically at his peak odds. I got Denny Hamlin 12-1. I guarantee you couldn't find Denny Hamlin 12-1 at all week until that point in the race. So I actually feel like my strategy going into the race was very good, and I thought it was just a very good, entertaining, engaging race, and we were able to judge speed pretty accurately after stage 1 and partway through stage 2. And shout outs to you, Jordan, for your stage 1 bet. You crushed it there. I know you had Christopher Bell minus 140 over Eric Jones, and you bombed the shit out of it. So that was a hell of a bet find there by you. But overall, very entertaining race. And Kyle Larson, he had contact on pit road. His car went to shit partway through the race, and they fixed it up. And he ended up winning the race. So, big shout-outs to the number 5 team for Hendrick Motorsports fixing that car up and bringing home the win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned, that stage bet. I tweeted out, I put like 2.8 units on it because it was minus 140. So 2.8 to win 2. I should have put 28.
Yes.
That was, I opened up Bet 365 and I was like, oh, they have stage matchups. So I went stage 1 matchup. Christopher Bell, Eric Jones. I'm like, this isn't even close. This is the only way this doesn't hit is if, and this is where my brain got overthinking, was, What if Christopher Bell hits the wall on lap 20? What if they lose a tire on their first pit stop? And I'm like, okay, I'm trying not to Ryan Blaney top 10 at Martinsville this bet that I lost my ass on because I was so confident on. But I'm like, this is like, I texted all my friends. I'm like, bet this right now. Like you have to bet this right now. This is the absolute slam dunk. I cannot believe it's available. And hopefully enough people, the tweets that I got, it sounded like enough people listened to me that, people made money off it, which is awesome. So,
let me just jump in here real quick because, you're like, oh yeah, I should have put 28 units on it, whatever. Absolutely. Like it was one of those where the edge, like where you and we made the biggest, remember we both made like ginormous bets at the Daytona 500. I made my largest NASCAR bet ever at the Daytona 500, for that no driver to win 2+ stages bet. And we won that one. But when we say like we're betting large, we're betting big, if you're listening, if you're following, if you're watching, sure, increase your bet size, but do it responsibly for yourself. Jordan and I, when we make these large bets, when we make, we should have done this, it's because we can afford to do it. So the one thing I want to just reinforce here is make sure you're being responsible still. Even if you think this is like 90% to hit, there's still a 10% chance it doesn't. You know what I mean? Right. So, we still recognize the fact, and that's where like you said, your head got to you. What if he hits the wall on lap, whatever? What if his tire blows? There's always that possibility. None of these things are guarantees. None of these things are locks. So they can still be very good bets, very big edge. But please just always bet responsibly. And so, even when Jordan and I are like, we smashed this, we destroyed this bet, we're going to stress, like, make sure you're, air quotes, smashing it in your responsible manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Never go over your head. Never do more than you can afford to lose. Like that needs to be first and foremost. Like this is nothing is guaranteed here. And like, the other bet that I really liked last week, we actually talked about on last week's episode. I loved Alex Bowman top 10 minus 125. After we recorded, it moved to plus 100, and that was another one. I was super confident, but then I got in my head. I'm like, he's not awesome at Richmond, so I think I only put a unit on it. Should have put more.
I ended up taking it and giving it out on the Running Hot podcast as well, crediting you on the Running Hot podcast. And I got it at minus 110 or 112 or something like that. I don't remember the exact number because it's been a week and all that. But 100% was like, yeah, I got to tail Jordan on this one. And so Stevie and I both were on that. I think it was our victory lane bet, which is our the bet where Stevie and I are together on the same bet. We tailed you, so shout outs to you there as well. You definitely were spot on for Richmond.
Yeah, it was one of those weeks. Like I was super confident in my bets. I was not super confident in DFS at all. Barely played. I only had 3 lineups in DFS, but it's one of those weeks. Like it could go either way. Like I can be super confident in bets and still lose them. And I always have to remember, and every bettor has to remember, that there is going to be those weeks where like you're like, how does this lose? And then it ends up losing. You're like, that's how it loses. But yeah, Alex Bowman, I don't think he ran lower than 8th all day. That's where he finished. I'm pretty sure that's the lowest he ran outside of like pit strategy and stuff like that. But overall, yeah, that was like Richmond has turned into suddenly one of my favorite racetracks. Like I understand I talked about last week how Richmond can be super predictable. Like the guys that we thought were going to be fast were fast. Like we know who's good at these type of tracks. But like I told you, like or I mentioned in last week's episode, like it seems like I'm really good at predicting the first half, and then I kind of fall off in the second half. This whole race, like everybody that we thought would be fast in the end was there. The JGR cars were there about the midpoint part of the race. They turned into the best cars. Christopher Bell, always good there. Truex always good there. Hamlin always good there. Harvick, he had a couple issues, but he still was running top 5 most of the day. Chastain's he's shown strength there before. He was running top 5 all day. And then of course William Byron. Like the kid's just on fire this season. But one interesting aspect of Richmond this past weekend was qualifying and practice got rained out. We didn't have anything to go off of, which for me, that always lowers my confidence quite a bit, because I don't like going into anything completely blind outside of super speedways, because nobody can predict super speedways. But like a track like Richmond, I need to have something. Yes, I understand we had Phoenix. We knew who was fast at Phoenix, but we have situations like Joey Logano, who was absolute garbage at Phoenix, which was completely unexpected. Yep. And then the more you think about it, you're like, okay, they probably just missed the setup there, got back to something normal here at Richmond, because he finished 7th, didn't have the best average running position, but he was really good on those restarts. Like, he
the
would
short
go
run,
wide,
man,
and
he had a car on the short run for sure, and he would go, like you said, he was 3 wide on every restart, and he gained positions. They definitely, the Fords, the Penske's, they have short run speed. There's no doubt about it. I still question whether they have long run speed, because Logano didn't really make up a ton. After he got that penalty, I think he got, like, went to the rear or something happened. He got, back of the field there. He didn't really progress forward. He made a couple of nice restarts and maybe got in around 18th, but he got passed at one point by, I can't even remember who, but it was somebody we wouldn't normally expect he gets passed by on a longer run there. So I still question the longer run speed, and I think he was a borderline, maybe barely borderline top 10 car. Obviously, he didn't have the track position to show what he really had, but I very much still worry about what they have on the long run, the Team Penske cars. And Ryan Blaney wasn't good, and Austin Cindric wasn't good. So just, something to note that those Penske cars are still hurting a little bit on long run speed, I believe, because I feel like if they were good on long run speed, I feel like Joey Logano, the way other people could pass, I feel like he would have been able to pass his way up into the top 10. And he really didn't. He kind of he made his way into the top 10, after several pit stops and stages and cautions, etc. But he wasn't really a top 10 car, or maybe borderline.
Mm-hmm. Another guy that has been strong this whole season, and a lot of people were considering him a pretty good sleeper. You mentioned you bet on him. Brad Keselowski coming home 10th, another top 10 for that team. 2 top 10 in both stages as well. I just think that's noteworthy. Also, he's led. I don't know if you noticed this, but Keselowski's led in every single race this season except for Coda when he had a drive shaft issue. Like, the team just finds a way to get to the front, whether they lead 1 lap or 40, which they led 47 at Atlanta and 42 at Daytona. But that team, I admit it every time I bring it up with Keselowski, I didn't think Roush Fenway Keselowski was going to be worth a shit. And I'm telling you what, I think he's going to win. I'm repeating this again because I know I talked about it last week, but I think Keselowski's going to get a legitimate win this year. Like that team, if he wouldn't have started 24th at Richmond, I think he would have had a top 5 car.
Yeah, I agree. Keselowski was so good. I don't know what Buescher's strategy was there. They were terrible as far as their strategy, because they didn't necessarily have a lack of speed, but their strategy was really bad. After that caution came out early in stage 2, they still decided to split the stage into thirds, and I don't think it really worked out. Somehow it worked out for Josh Berry. Like, he barely ended up staying on the lead lap, and it worked out. But Chris Buescher didn't work out for him, but Keselowski had a very, very strong race. And again, if he hadn't had those issues, I think he would have been arguably a top 5 car. And, I got him plus 140 for a top 10. Feel very good about that based off of everything I'd seen with Keselowski's. I mean, if we look last year at Richmond, both Richmond races, he was top 12 in average running position, green flag speed, flags, you name it. He was inside the top 12 in those metrics. Driver rating, yada, yada, yada. For both Richmond races. And Phoenix this year, he was inside the top 8 in all those metrics. So, just kind of felt very, very good about Keselowski having a strong race specifically. But I thought Buescher was going to have a good race as well.
Another guy that finished up. I need to shout out 2 guys here. First, Todd Gilliland, 3rd straight top 15 finish. Comes home 15th at Richmond. Ever since he got, he learned that he was splitting time with his front row car and then the Rick Ware car, because front row wanted to give what's his name more opportunity. I forget. Is it Zane Smith that's in there? But since Todd Gilliland went to or ran for Rick Ware Racing at Phoenix, 15th at Atlanta, 10th at Coda, 15th at Richmond. Now, obviously, there's some luck that comes in there. Atlanta was a super speedway race, but very good results for that team. Not to mention his teammate, who I actually wrote up for DFS as a tournament play, because here's the thing with Michael McDowell. He is awful at Richmond. literally worse than pretty much any other active driver by a long shot. He is so bad at Richmond. My point with McDowell was, one, he starts 15th, and at a short track position is key. Two, he's also awful at Phoenix, and he came away with one of his best finishes of the year at Phoenix earlier this year. And then three, he lucked out. Same with Josh Berry, but he lucked out, finished 6th. But overall, McDowell still had a pretty decent race. He was 18th in average running position, 22nd in green flag speed. Once again, that Front Row Motorsports team is just, they're the little underdogs that you have to keep paying attention to them every single week, because you know what? Those are the guys that are going to help you win in DFS. And they're going to be the long shots that you get super long odds for top 10 finishes that can legitimately get it. Michael McDowell had no business finishing top 10 this past week, but he did it. And I love watching the underdogs. You guys know, if you listen to this podcast for very long, you know that I like the underdogs. And
you do.
McDowell,
I mean, your Corey LaJoys of the world, your Gilly Gangs of the world, Fast Pasta back when he was racing that 38 car. You definitely do. And one thing I will say, I do like, over the long run, I put more stock in that 22nd green flag speed rather than the, 16th or 18th running position, because he had a lot of those laps where he was running towards the front because of the strategy, which he wouldn't normally have been. So I definitely put more stock in the green flag speed. But at the same time, racing isn't 100% speed. There's strategy elements that come into play. And that's part of why Josh Berry finished 2nd. Michael McDowell finished 6th, right? There's strategy elements that are going to happen in these races. And as far as DFS, that's exactly what you're talking about. We get these situations where these little teams that can, or these drivers that are maybe overlooked. You know, I wrote up Josh Berry as a tournament play. Obviously, had a great tournament result. Very flattering result. I know I'll have more on that. But the idea is, you know, as far as DFS, and I guess this is going to tie into a question that I know we were asked. What do you do when there's a rain out and you don't have practice, et cetera? It's different track to track, race to race. Richmond's much more predictable than other tracks. So I'm not going to pivot as hard on Richmond. But I thought Josh Berry was a very good pivot off of Eric Almirola, who started a couple spots further back, who's known for short flat track racing. And I thought he was a good pivot off of Ryan Preece as well. I noticed a lot of people were on Ryan Preece because they were on him at the Clash, or they were on him at, in the past, Martinsville. You know, they think of him as a short track racer because of his experience in Wayland modified, etc. So I figured people would be on Preece, and I figured people would be on Almirola, and less so Berry. And it turns out of the three, Berry was the lowest owned of 3, not by a ton, but it still was enough that I thought it was going to be, you know, worthwhile as a tournament play. And turns out similar for McDowell here. I wasn't necessarily recommending McDowell for DFS. Obviously, I can only write up a certain handful of drivers, but definitely one I overlooked for DFS.
Yeah. And I didn't have an opinion on Josh Berry, really. I didn't really talk about him much. And like I said, he's going to be the topic of my whine about it. So we'll get to that. But like I mentioned before, some comments after the race, Martin Truex Jr. and his crew chief. You know, Truex got caught. They pitted early. They used a set of tires early, and then he basically got screwed on that final restart. He was on scuffs. Everybody else was on new tires, and he just dropped like a rock. Ended up finishing 11th. He's probably lucky to finish there. But basically what came out was his crew didn't tell him that he was on scuffed tires. And I don't know why, and I don't understand how you have that relationship with your crew chief, where, to me, that type of relationship and what the audio that we heard between these two, I don't understand how they ever can win again. I feel like that is a scenario where Martin Truex Jr. needs a new crew chief, in my opinion, because that type of, I don't understand withholding that, and the driver, Truex literally said all 4 of my tires are flat on that final run, and then they didn't tell him until the end of the race, and then it was just a shouting match back and forth. It's like, I feel like as the crew chief, you need to tell that information to your driver, and yes. I guess maybe there's a reason that it was withheld, but to me, that type of I don't see them two working well enough together like they have in the past. And maybe that's why Martin Truex Jr. has fallen off as much as he has, is because their relationship has deteriorated to something like this. Because, like it or not, you need to get along with these guys. You need to get along with your crew, especially your crew chief. So I don't know if did you hear the audio? Did you have any thoughts on it?
I actually didn't. And when I was hopping on to Stack and Dennys, you said you wanted to talk about it. I didn't know anything about it until just about when we were hopping on to record. So here's the thing, like, after the 2019 season, Cole Pern, who was Martin Truex Jr.'s crew chief for several years when he was with Furniture Row and then Joe Gibbs Racing, he retired. And that year, 2019, Truex finished second in the championship. He won 7 races. He finished second in the championship that year. The year before, he finished second. The year before, he finished first in the championship. Right? That was the heyday of Martin Truex Jr. What happened the next year? Truex finished seventh, and he had one win. What happened in 2021? He had a good year. He had 4 wins, finished second in the championship. But last year, he didn't even make the playoffs. And this year, he has one top 10 finish. One.
Yeah.
So it could be driver. It could be crew chief. It could be a combination. But it's not working as well as it was in the Cole Pern years for Martin Truex Jr.
Yeah. So the audio, James Small said we had fucking scuff tires on there because we hosed ourselves taking a set in stage 1, so we were fucked regardless. Sorry we fucked up. So he keeps saying we, but he made that call, first off.
Right.
To which Truex said, you didn't tell me you put scuffs on, so I didn't know what the fuck was wrong. And then James Small, crew chief, said, there was no point in telling you we were fucked either way. I don't understand that mindset. I don't understand that there's no point in telling you. Because, this is just absolutely insane to me. To me, if I'm Joe Gibbs Racing, Small's out immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I'll die on that hill if I have to, but
yeah,
it's just, to me, it's inexcusable. And I don't know anything about running a race team, but
it's funny because the TV audience knew. I mean, we 100% knew Truex had 6-lap scuffs on, and it's just unfathomable that Truex wouldn't know that and wouldn't know how to deal with that. Again, like you said, maybe there's a reason for them not to tell him, but if I was a driver, and I'm not a NASCAR driver, maybe maybe Stephen Malazzi has a comment on that, but maybe he would, have an idea if he wanted to know. Just like I think it's pretty clear Truex would have wanted to know, but I don't know. I don't have any crew chief friends in NASCAR, but I wonder if there is a reason they would want to withhold that information. But I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, anybody listening, if you have an idea of why that information would be withheld, because, could you imagine as a driver going in and you're expecting your car to stick perfectly in that first corner, and you don't, you immediately you're going to think something's wrong, and to me that could make you overreact. That could make you completely change how you do race the rest of that race. I don't know. That ain't it. But looking at the standings after 7 races, our boy Alex Bowman gets another top 10 finish, 6 top 10 finishes in the first 7 races. He's the points leader by 4 over Ross Chastain. Christopher Bell, William Byron, Kevin Harvick, all within 2 points of each other. But the real thing to note here, playoff points. William Byron, after getting those points reinstated from the appeal, he's now leading, or he now has 15 because he won the first stage there at Richmond. 15 playoff points already through 7 races. Kyle Larson and Joey Logano and Tyler Reddick tied behind him with 6. Kyle Busch Stenhouse with 5. Chastain with 3. And then we got Keselowski, Hamlin, Cindric with 1. But Alex Bowman, doing Alex Bowman things. Yes, he's leading the points right now. Yes, he's getting top 10 after top 10. He has 0 playoff points. He has nothing to show for this. He has no wins. He has no playoff points. He's barely led any laps. Total laps led 39 this season. Wow. I'm rooting for Alex Bowman. I think he's going to have a great year, but that team really needs to get a win.
Yes.
Obviously, Chase Elliott doesn't have a win. He's been hurt this year. Kyle Larson finally got in victory lane. He got off the quote-unquote hot seat for Hendrick Motorsports. Byron has 2 wins. Alex Bowman absolutely needs a win. But one guy I definitely want to talk about as far as off to a hot start, Christopher Bell, who ended up in the Final Four last year at Phoenix. I remember when we talked about the Phoenix finale last year, we thought that he could actually contend for the championship. He had an accident at Auto Club. He finished 32nd. He had an accident at COTA. He finished 31st. Every other race this year, he's finished 6th or better. Every single one. He was 3rd in the Daytona 500. Obviously, that's a lot of luck. Okay, take that away from him. 5th at Las Vegas. 6th at Phoenix. 3rd at Atlanta. Again, you can call that a little bit of luck. Richmond, 4th. That team is, for as questionable as Joe Gibbs Racing has been this year, because they haven't been great by any means, Christopher Bell is, by all intents and purposes, killing it as far as Joe Gibbs Racing goes this year.
100%. And I felt bad leaving him out of my Final Four because he was 5th, or he was, I guess, 6th in my Final Four, right? I was debating between Byron or Bowman in the end, but he was 6th. I felt very strongly, hell yeah, there we go. I think that's 4 cracks now.
Yep.
I think, Christopher Bell is right there in contention. Me leaving him out wasn't a sign of I didn't think he was going to make it into the Final Four. It was just a sign of the fact that this is a very competitive series. And there's going to be years where good cars just don't make the Final Four. So, it's essentially a guessing game for us as far as who's going to make the Final Four. I think we have very educated guesses on who we think will be good. But we both knew coming into the year, Christopher Bell, I'm not going to say he's Joey Logano because hasn't been in the Cup Series as long as Logano was when Logano turned 28, right? Logano had been in the Cup Series for a decade. Christopher Bell is only on his 4th year, but he has a little bit of that feel to him where he's not going to win every race on the planet, but he's going to surprise and win a couple races a year. And surprise is the wrong word, but he's going to win a few, maybe when you don't expect him, or maybe when you do, but he's not going to be a guy, I don't think, that wins 7, 8, 6 races a year like we see from the Larsons or the Harvicks or the Hamlins of the world. But he'll be around always, and I think that is a very good thing. And remember last year, Christopher Bell, his year started off very slowly. He had an issue at the Daytona 500. He had an issue at Auto Club. He finished 10th at Vegas, but he had a flat tire or a spin. He had a crash at Phoenix, some kind of problem there. And then Atlanta, he was going to finish 2nd, but he got a below the yellow line or double line there. It's not yellow issue. So he had, out of his first 5 races, he had 4 finishes of 23rd or worse and only 1 top 10 finish. It was just a 10th. But the signs were there because he was fast. He was always up front, even in the races he had issues. And now he's up front and he's finishing. Obviously, there are 2 DNFs in there, but the other 5 races, he's finishing, and he's finishing good. So he is going to be a threat again to win the title. So, you mentioned Alex Bowman, and I 100% agree. I mean, you and I are both high on him. But you're right. He hasn't shown, dominance. But in the current version of NASCAR, honestly, it rings true for pretty much any version of NASCAR. There's ways to win the title without being dominant. The whole reason NASCAR even started the original chase was because Matt Kenseth won 1 race. And then, remember the first year of the championship 4, Ryan Newman could have won the championship without winning a race. And he finished 2nd in the championship. If somebody else had been slightly faster than Newman and Harvick, and Newman passed Harvick in the last lap, Newman could have won the title by finishing 2nd. But even now, Alex Bowman legitimately I could see him making the Final Four, and as long as he finishes ahead of everybody else in that championship, he could win with maybe winning 1 race, the championship race, or maybe even winning none, just depending on how things work out. So wins are huge. They get you 5 bonus points. Obviously it's going to be a big, massive way to get into the finals, but it's not a guarantee. Harvick had 9 wins, didn't make the championship. Larson had 10 wins one year and almost didn't make the championship. So there are ways that guys like an Alex Bowman can sneak in, even without being maybe the most dominant. But I think the whole point is we kind of knew Alex Bowman was going to kind of have this year. He and Blake Harrison, again, we know Blake Harris suspended, all that stuff, but he still obviously has all the input in the world on that car. But those guys are firing on all cylinders. They maybe aren't the fastest, but they're doing what Michael McDowell did last year. They're getting finishes.
Yep. Looking at average running position through the first 7 races, the average combined running position, William Byron well out ahead of everybody else, 7.4 over the first 7 races. Alex Bowman second at 9.4. Got to give a shout out to Brad Keselowski, 6th at 12.04, 12.05 at average running position. Looking at total green flag or average rank and green flag speed over the first 7 races, Kyle Larson number 1, Byron, Chastain, again Keselowski here sitting in 7th. So again, I just want to keep pointing out Keselowski, very strong. But as we've seen, pretty much this every single race this year, the Hendrick cars are the cars to beat. So you have to wonder when that win for Alex Bowman is going to come. It's going to. I'm not going to guarantee, but I say it's very likely that he gets multiple wins this season. But yeah, he's never been the dominant type of guy. We're now seeing Byron become the dominant type of guy. Obviously, Larson's the dominant type of guy. Chase Elliott can get there, especially on road courses. Alex Bowman's just not that guy. And I don't know if he has what it takes to become that guy, the absolute dominant machine. I'm not sure it's there, but that's not to say, like you said, it's not to say he can't win, because consistency also means a lot. You know, you go through this season, you go through these playoffs, knocking out top tens, you're going to get there. The points,
100%.
The volatile guys are going to fall out. So,
yes,
it is. Alex Bowman is still in a great position, starting out this year. But looking further down,
random question: where would you need to bet him? Where would his odds need to be to bet him for the championship?
That's a very good question. I know we've gotten tweets on this. I think you can get him now at like 30. If I'm right.
Yeah, I've seen a 30,
maybe 20.
Not quite there.
I might. Maybe 40, but
I think 40.
It's gonna take. It's gonna take it's probably gonna take 50 for me to be like, okay, I'll bite.
I agree with that. I definitely agree. I will 100% bite at 50. 40, I'm like, maybe. Because he's not. I know we bet Ross Chastain last year, 50, 60, whatever. Ross had so much more upside.
Dominance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ross had so much more upside, whereas Bowman is showing a lot more consistency. And that, while we applaud that, while we've seen it get people to the finals or even win a championship in Kenseth's case in the non-playoff era, it's still not the way teams typically win titles.
Mm-hmm. No, and I'm going to go back to 39 laps led for this guy, which is not. I mean, it's nothing too crazy or too low, but at the same point, right. Chris Buescher has 38. For comparison, Byron's leading the way, 385. Larson has 363. Bowman, when it comes to laps led, 12th most.
Yep.
So 11 drivers have led more laps, and obviously laps are very relative compared to tracks. But just quick, I'm just looking at Racing Reference and pulling that number out of there. But yeah. I think it's got to be 50 for me to hit Bowman, and part of that is also due to the fact that I hate betting championship futures, especially.
Yes, I agree with you there.
I just don't like it. I never do it. Outside of Chastain last year, I obviously did bet that. But if I'm going to bet a championship future, I'm going to do it on a guy maybe like Bowman, who is in the playoffs facing elimination in a final race of a round. And then, their odds get super long because of that possibility of them missing it, then I'll bet it. Because, as long as they survive then, and I think they have a good chance to continue on and make it to the championship, then I'm more likely to bet championship. But I have no interest in betting futures like that. I just don't. I never have.
Yep. I typically don't either. I think it's, a few occasions where we do, like obviously the Ross one last year. And I think you and I both bet Blaney and or Truex going into that Daytona race simply because getting them at, what was it, 18 and 24 or whatever it was we got them at, I don't remember the exact numbers. It was just ridiculous because you knew if those guys get in, and one of them was guaranteed to get in, 18 or 24 was just stupid. So
I still have one of the slips. Ryan Blaney, 16-1. Championship.
Yeah, exactly.
Placed at August 25th.
I still have a Kyle, was it a Kyle Larson or William Byron? There's a race I bet last year at Westgate because PJ was in Vegas, and I ended up, he was in Vegas, I think it was for it was right before Homestead, because I remember, like, I wanted to blast Brad Keselowski top forward for that race, and he did, I think, end up finishing top forward. But I ended up, so this was for Homestead playoff race. Yeah, so it was the Vegas race, but I think we watched it at Westgate, and then I ended up betting, yeah, there it is. I bet Larson to win Homestead. It was not like a tracked bet. I didn't put it in the app or anything. It was like, I'm drunk, and I'm inside Westgate, and I'm going to place whatever I just won from Vegas, half of it on Larson and half of it on Byron to win Homestead, and Larson ended up winning Homestead. I still haven't cashed that ticket.
Really?
Because it's an in-person one, and like I have the app and all that stuff, so I don't ever have a need to like go there in person. So I haven't been to Westgate in person since then. So I guess I need to get it in before the whatever it is, 180 days expires or something. Yeah. So maybe I'll have to make a trip to Westgate this week.
Yeah, Larson absolutely dominated that race. Perfect driver rating of 150.0, won both stages, led 199 laps. It's pure domination.
Yep.
Outside of the guys we've talked about, anybody else popping out to you here on these standings as we're getting, like I said, we're 7 races in. We talked about Stenhouse last week. By the way, he had a really fast car at Richmond before he scrubbed the wall and had his issues. He also had a pretty cool paint scheme. I'm a big fan of Kraft macaroni and cheese, so
am I.
I like that. I like that paint
I literally
scheme.
have Kraft macaroni and cheese
cheap
up in
ass
my pantry. Fuck yeah. Hell yeah.
I love Kraft macaroni and cheese. My favorite frozen pizza, I know I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but my favorite frozen pizza is the Totino's, like $1.25 cheese pizzas that are just like the cheap as hell. I don't know why, but I love them. I love those. I love Kraft macaroni and cheese.
I'm gonna have to look into those. I do too. I'm gonna have to look into those. I had a little tiny personal pizza last night for dinner, frozen one. And you just throw it in the oven, heat it up, and have it. So I don't remember. I'm not good with like brand names. I never pay attention to that shit. So, but right there with you. Yeah, I mean, I guess Stenhouse is still the only other guy I'd really mention. Obviously, if he didn't have that issue, he probably would have had a lot better finish. And speaking of jinxes, the way I jinxed Brad Keselowski after I live bet him. I know Garage Guy Chase live bet Stenhouse, then immediately Stenhouse had his problem or whatever. So it's like one of those things. Like, damn it, dude, it sucks because. Yeah, I don't think 200-1 on Stenhouse live when he's literally sitting there running, was it 8th, and he had been the whole time up until that point. I don't think it's a bad bet at all. Just sucks that as soon as you bet it and then the problem happens, it's a bummer. But by the way, speaking of garage guys, went on Dale Center with Dale Tanhart for that IndyCar race, and we had a good betting day. So, Gotta hook up with those garage guys more because that was a good time.
Yeah, I think we actually got a tweet about that, the IndyCar race. If I remember right, let me see. Yeah, off topic, but I remember Nick saying he was going to IndyCar Long Beach. Curious if either of you watched IndyCar last weekend at Texas. I thought the racing was absolutely fantastic. Would like to hear your thoughts. I didn't watch it, but I know you did. So what are your thoughts? Because you said you'll happily give your thoughts, happily in all caps.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that was one of the better IndyCar races, honestly, of my lifetime. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the 1998 to 2001 Michigan when they had the Hanford device. But it was up there with some of the better IndyCar races of all time. And I'm saying, IndyCar, but it was kart back then. There was actually IRL and kart, and they were split because they split in 96, and then they rejoined again in 2008, I think it was. They came back together and merged once again into the current IndyCar. But since the merger, I think the remerger of the two series in 2008, I think it was one of the top 5 races, period. And there have been some very good ones, don't get me wrong. Yeah, well, there have been some good ones. Texas, before they repaved and reconfigured it, or right after the repave and reconfigure, before they ruined it with PJ1, or whatever, resin, there was a couple good races there in like 16, 17 with Texas, and then there's some good older Texas races as well, but they ruined it for a few years with that PJ1, but it's starting to like decrease in how terrible it's being. And I think we saw hints of that in the NASCAR race last year. You could pass. We saw passes for the lead at Texas that had nothing to do with the blown tires. Of course, there were a billion of those last year, and it sucked. But the actual racing part of the Texas race in the Cup Series last year was good. We both said it on Stacking Dennys, like the next recording we did after the Texas race. We were like, that was good racing. The problem was it was a shitty race because of the tire failures, but it was good racing when we actually had racing. Well, IndyCar last year had an amazing race, and this year was beyond blown away expectations. And so there's a guy on Twitter named Arnie. His handle is @necktie, but Thai is like Thai food, like THAI. So his Twitter handle is @necktie, and he works for IndyCar, but he tweeted out some of the stats, an article with some of the stats, and he did a lot of the research on that. But the IndyCar race had, 256 passes for position in the top 10, 439 passes per position, the most in 6 years at Texas, 1,070 on-track passes, the most in 7 years at Texas, and the second highest total since IndyCar began tracking on-track passes in 2006. Literally the second most passes in IndyCar since 2006. It was an incredible race, and it was at Texas. And there were 93 on-track passes just by Pato O'Ward, who ended up finishing second. And here's the crazy thing about this race. At one point, Pato O'Ward had lapped everybody except Joseph Newgarden. Literally the whole field, other than one car, was a lap down, and it was still a riveting, exciting race. I cannot tell you. There was days in the old IRL where Sam Hornish would lap the field, and he'd lap all but 1 or 2 or 3 cars, and it was terribly boring. But this was not that. This was exciting, and a guy was lapping almost the whole field, all but 1 car, and it was exciting. And then obviously, there was a late crash and a caution flew, and some guys took the wave around, and cautions breed cautions even in IndyCar. We got a couple restarts, a couple different strategies. Super exciting race. I loved it. And, that's going to be part, I don't want to go too far. That's going to be part of my whine about it as well. So, we got that question, but it was an incredible race. And to me, IndyCar right now, I love NASCAR. It's where I make my living, by and large, a lot of it where I make my living. And, I have for many years as far as fantasy NASCAR, betting, all that. But to me, IndyCar racing is the best product on the planet, and it's not close.
That's definitely something that I cannot agree or disagree with because I don't watch it. So,
well,
I'm glad it was such. I'm glad it was such a good race. And maybe I'll get into it. I don't know. I've said before, I don't even watch. I don't get too pumped up for Xfinity or trucks either. I don't know why.
Right.
I've always just been a Cup guy, and that's kind of just been
same here.
My thing. But yeah,
I've always been a Cup guy and not Xfinity, a Cup guy and an IndyCar guy.
Okay. But yeah, you mentioned that's going to be part of your whine about it. You didn't want to get too much further into it, so we are going to go ahead and get into whine about it this week, which presented by RotoBaller Winery. If you listen to this show, you're drinking that one again. I still need to try.
No, it's empty. I still have it sitting here because it's like it literally just sits here on my desk because it was the best one. And I liked all of the RotoBaller wines, but I mean the bourbon barrel aged Merlot is the best one. I don't have any more. Need to order more. I will do that. But it's so good. So presented by RotoBaller wines. Go ahead.
Yes. So this, what I'm going to try this week, I have yet to try this one. I have not tried this one before. Passion Blackberry. I'm not a big blackberry guy, so this is going to be a little bit different for me. This has been sitting here, so there's some condensation. Oh, this is going to be embarrassing. Don't look if you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah. Except actually watch on YouTube so you can click the link in the description. Not click the link, but look in the description for if you want to donate to the sponsorship funds, how you can do that.
Yes, be sure to try that. But here we go. Let me get close. And I love the sound of wine when it's coming out of the bottle.
That is music to my ears right there.
Yes. Do a little smell here. Oh, it smells good. I'll give it that. I'm just not a big blackberry guy. So,
I love blackberry. One of my favorite foods in the world.
Is it?
Cranberry is my favorite. Cranberry sauce, like not the gelled shit that you get for Thanksgiving in a can. That's terrible. It's horrible. Actual cranberries, whole cranberries, and you boil them with some sugar, and they open up and release all that stuff, and it becomes a nice cranberry sauce from real whole cranberries. Best food in the world. Blackberries are up there.
Okay. All right. Gonna give this a taste. Like I said, it smells pretty good. It actually reminds me of Purple Rain a little bit. It's not bad. I think if you like blackberry, it's smooth. That's smooth. If you like blackberries, it's a little too tart for me. And I think it's the blackberryness of it. But like I said, it's tart to start with, but then it's smooth going down. So it's not bad. Like I definitely sit there and drink it. I can't sit there and say I wouldn't drink it, but not one of my favorites that I've had so far. But I gave it a solid. I'll give it a 6.2 out of 10.
Why not a 6.9?
Yeah, no, that's too much.
It's too nice.
But yeah. So my wine about it, I know neither of us really have. This is a surprising week because I also
we're
have
going
to.
light we're going with light wine.
Yeah. So I have to give a shout out to. I got a tweet on Sunday, and just to be clear, I was pretty drunk on Sunday. I was drinking the hard monsters. I WrestleMania was that night. I was excited. I was pretty drunk. But someone tweeted me. I tweeted out some stupid shit, and someone tweeted me, and he was like, "Have you ever not been angry about everything?" And I just immediately, I was like, "You must be new here."
Dude, I laughed so hard. I was dying.
You must be new here because, like, not only do we have this segment, we have Wine About It, where we sit here and complain about stuff, but that's kind of been my MO on Twitter for a long time. Like, I always try to be the controversial guy and the guy that kind of complains about everything. So just to get that tweet, it cracked me up. Have you ever not been angry about everything? Buddy, I'm angry about everything all the time. I'm going to find something to be angry about with pretty much everything. So my wine about it, though, it's not something that... Yeah, this wine about it was not triggered by anything happening. I just know that there's going to be people that kind of get this talk and this opinion in their head. A guy like Josh Berry, okay, he finished second. Yes, he could have won that race. He absolutely, if things would have went absolutely perfectly right, he could have won that race. Congratulations to him if he would have done it. Congratulations on a second place finish. That's awesome in the Cup Series. He now has 2 top 10s on the year. Another one being at Phoenix a few weeks ago, which is also a short flat track, similar to Richmond. But just like at Richmond, he lucked into that top 10 finish at Phoenix. He really lucked into that second place finish at Richmond. And what I am going to whine about and what I don't like to hear, and we hear about this with guys like AJ Allmendinger, who's very good at road courses. I don't want to start hearing that Josh Berry deserves a Cup full-time ride, because he doesn't. He has not proved anything to deserve this full Cup time ride. Yes, he has shown flashes of being good. He has some Xfinity wins. I think he has a couple, maybe 3. Yes, he has shown that he has talent, but just having talent does not mean that you should have, or that you should be awarded, especially a top tier ride in the Cup Series. And like I said, it's just like AJ Allmendinger. I will sit here. You know how much I do not like AJ Allmendinger. I will admit that he is a very good road course racer, but I do not believe that he deserves a full-time Cup ride in NASCAR's top series. Same with Josh Berry. So for anybody that's going to hop on the Josh Berry bandwagon after the second place finish at Richmond and start saying, oh, he should get a full-time ride. He should replace Alex Bowman at Hendrick Motorsports. Shut the hell up. No, he shouldn't. Yes, he has the potential to be good in the future, but he's not if he's a full-time Cup Series driver right now, he's not going to go out there and outrun a lot of these guys. So he's in one of the best cars in the series. He has one of the best teams in the series. There's a reason why he is getting these finishes, and it's not easy. This isn't video games where you just plug in a driver and it goes, and all of a sudden he's an all-star. So before anybody just starts blabbing about Josh Berry, deserving of an awesome ride in the Cup because of his second place finish at Richmond, just please don't, because it's going to annoy me.
Yeah. First of all, I just have to comment once again on the "you must be new here," because that was I lost it. I was literally I got a new bed for RotoDog, LB, my dog. Of course, LB, Luvabella wines. It's so funny how that all worked out. But
perfect.
We're sitting on the bed watching the race, and I'm, as I usually do, and I'm scrolling Twitter, especially because it had been that point where I'd made my live bets and I shut down my computer and all that stuff, and I see your tweet. I just lost it. I literally just lost it. LB was concerned. He was like, "What is wrong with Dad?" He's like, "I just lost." It was so funny because it's like, if you know anything about Jordan, that's what he does, and it's not a bad thing. That's you, and it's amazing, and I love it. It was so funny because you embrace it, and I lost it. It was so funny. But as far as Josh Berry goes, first of all, no, he's never replacing Alex Bowman. Whatever, all that stuff, it doesn't matter. But let's look at a couple facts here. Josh Berry, and he's that expletive word that I hate. It begins with a W and ends in man. That's what people say. Very, very foul word. I actually have blocked it on Twitter, by the way. All the versions of it. And but people say that about Josh Berry. And I don't disagree. I think he's a very good driver. But he's going to be 33 very soon. In 6 months, he will be 33. And he's a late bloomer. No, I don't think he was a late bloomer. I think that's just when he got his opportunity. He didn't have his opportunity when he was 22, 23, right? That doesn't make him a late bloomer. There's literally no stats for him from when he was 22 or 23 or 24, whatever. I'm looking at JR Motorsports in 2015, which was 8 years ago. I guess he would have been 24. Finished 7th. Why is that? Which is what he basically did all of last year for Junior Motorsports. Basically finished 7th all year in that neighborhood. Why does it make him a late bloomer? It doesn't. It just means he hasn't had a ride of that quality because, he had a couple one-offs in 2015 with Junior Motorsports. He's not a late bloomer. That's when he got his opportunity. But he's coming up on 33, which... And as we know with rookies right now, look at Ty Gibbs. Look at Justin Haley last year, who had a very good year. Don't get me wrong. Look at Harrison Burton. Look at Todd Gilliland. Like, it's not easy to become a Cup Series rookie. We've talked about this extensively on Stacking Dennys in past episodes. So yeah, Josh Berry has 2 top 10s. Both of them are kind of lucky, and both of them came at his bread and butter style of racing, which is shorter flat tracks. And even then, they were lucky. Yeah. So I'm right there with you. I'm not on this. And I think he's a very good race car driver. I do. But I'm not on this. He should be the next thing in the Cup Series train. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, 16th in green flag speed at Richmond. I don't have Phoenix in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it was similar to that rank when it comes to green flag speed. And obviously,
that's fine. That was a good race, but that's not Chase Elliott. No. Chase Elliott probably wouldn't have been 16th at both of those races. Maybe one if he had a bad day, but not both of them.
So yeah, that's just where I'm at with Barry. And like I said, I haven't really seen anybody, specifically. He was 19th in green flag speed at Phoenix, finished 10th. So, I haven't seen anybody, I haven't seen many people talking about it. Especially, like what we've heard in the past with Allmendinger, when he goes out there and before he got his full-time cup ride this year back again, he would go out and win a road course race in Xfinity, and everybody, including the people in the booth, would be like, oh, he deserves a full-time cup ride. No, he doesn't. He still doesn't. He still sucks. He's still not doing anything this year. But yeah, that's where I'm at. What is your whine about it, Nick?
Yeah, so I'm going to get probably a little heat, probably a little flack for this one. And I don't think it's like super controversial or anything, but you mentioned I got that question about, did you watch the Texas IndyCar race? And that was from somebody on Twitter called Old Fart Racer, which, by the way, shout outs to you for following me once again. I know you used to follow me. I don't know why you unfollowed me, but thanks for following me again. I have no problem calling that stuff out. But it's funny because, and I came up with this before I saw their next tweet, which has nothing to do with stacking Dennys, but I saw the tweet. So it says, thanks, I'm an auto racing fan, love it all, NASCAR, Indy, F1, IMSA, NHRA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Never understand the fans are always pitting one series against the other for whatever reason. Well, I'm not really pitting one series against the other because I do enjoy Formula One, but I don't understand how people enjoy Formula One so much more than other series because it's just not there. Like, it's not there for me. And I watched the Formula One race at Australia this past weekend. I love, especially Australia. It's one of my favorite tracks that Formula One races on, and it tends to put on a good show. And it did put on a good show, but at the same time, I just cannot get behind the lack of overall competition. And I know people love a few storylines. I want my mid-pack driver to do well, but if that's what you're rooting for, like, watch NASCAR if you want your mid-pack driver to do well, because you'll have your mid-pack driver finish in the top 10 5 times a year, right? Like, it's Formula One. It's not boring, but it's not exciting for me. And I understand they do a great job with the marketing, with the the Drive to Survive or whatever the hell it's called. I don't even watch that series. And I love Formula One. I've watched it since the 90s. But I just don't understand why it's so much more. Obviously, worldwide, globally, yes, but in North America, why it's gaining, why it's better than IndyCar. Like, Formula One's not better than IndyCar. It's not. It's less competitive. It's fewer cars on the track. It's less passing. It's just an inferior series when it comes to actual racing. Okay, well, IndyCar is a spec series. I don't give a shit. The racing's good as shit in IndyCar. And Formula One racing, to me, not exciting. I mean, yeah, obviously on the very start of that Formula One race, there was A, a red flag on the beginning, but then B, like, George Russell took the lead. And then once George Russell had his issues and went by the wayside, Max Verstappen built up an almost 10-second lead, and the only reason he didn't win by double-digit seconds, and that was literally a bet, was like, will Max Verstappen win by 10-plus seconds? And it was like almost an even money bet, I think. Like, what kind of sport is that where you're betting even money on a guy winning by double-digit seconds? It just, and I understand, I get it, it's the engineering part, it's all that, that's fine. But it's just like, there's no intrigue there unless you're actually betting. If you're not betting on it, I don't give a shit if he wins by 1 second or by 20 seconds. Or I should say, like, let's say, like, anywhere between 5 and 20, or even 3 and 20. It's not close. So, and overall, Formula One is just less competitive. And I don't hate Formula One. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate it. But it's just, and then people give NASCAR shit. Well, let's relate this to NASCAR. NASCAR got dragged under the fucking bus for that COTA finish, right? Mm-hmm. It took an hour to finish the final 3 laps of the Formula One race, and we didn't actually even see them finish the race, aside from the stewards decided which rule the race ended under and then set the field accordingly, and then they did 1 procession lap around the track because they had to. after a red flag that took forever, after another red flag that took forever. It took over an hour or about an hour to finish the final 3 laps of the race, and we're giving NASCAR shit for the COTA finish. And I know it's a rarity for Formula One, but if you're going to give NASCAR shit for the COTA finish, how can we not shit all over that Formula One race? Because the ending of that was a joke and a half. And it was honestly, and because it was in Australia, I watched it Sunday night. It was 10 p.m. for me when the race started, Pacific time. And I was like, cool, I'll get to watch it 10 p.m. I'll be in bed before midnight. I'll be up before 9 a.m. for the IndyCar race because it started at noon Eastern, which is 9 a.m. Pacific time. I was up Formula One just waiting to see what the fuck happened until almost 1 a.m. It was like a 3 hour. They even came in and like, so there's like typically with racing series, I know IndyCar has, or had a 2 hour time limit of like green flag racing, or I should say green and yellow flag racing, non-red flag. Formula One, apparently, I didn't know this until I watched the broadcast, has a 3 hour rule in general. They were like, we're coming up on the 3 hour rule, and that included all the red flags. And I figured they just had a 2 hour racing time rule or something. I didn't realize they had a 3 hour to like complete the event rule. And it was I waited an hour just to watch cars complete one caution lap and some guy in a booth deciding the order of the finish. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Watch NASCAR.
I love the back and forth between how passionate people get when it comes to a product and a racing product being so superior over their own favorite racing product being so superior over another. It's just like, we're going to hear it this week with Bristol Dirt. I can guarantee this is going to be my whine about it next week. Like, dirt racing fans, I can already hear you talking how superior dirt racing is to any other type of motorsport. But I don't, like, obviously, like, you're fans of what you are, but at the same time, like, you can admit that other types of racing have aspects that are better and or worse than what you like. But
and again, I'm not shitting on Formula One. I'm just saying I don't get the superiority of purely Formula One fans. Yeah. I like Formula One. I'm not a diehard for it like I am for NASCAR or IndyCar. And like you said, you're a NASCAR Cup guy. I'm a NASCAR Cup guy and an IndyCar guy. I watch Xfinity. I watch trucks. I watch Formula One. But that's kind of how I feel about those. I enjoy them. I watch them when I can. But I don't. It's not a must-see TV for me.
And you mentioned the F1 series on Netflix, which has obviously boosted viewership here in the United States. You know what Netflix did there, and this, I'm going to segue here to a question we got on Twitter. Do you feel NASCAR is out of touch with its own fans? If so, why? What needs to happen to improve that? I ask this as I think about how great Bristol is, and they decided to take away a race for this random dirt race. And I agree. I think they are completely out of touch with their fans. I think even going back to like the Clash and the stupid concerts they have in the middle of the race, they're out of touch with their fans. Up until these last couple of years. So they've started listening to fans, I think, and drivers these last few years a lot more than they used to. But I think NASCAR went through such a time period where they just did not give a fuck what the fans said. And you know what you did? You pissed off enough of those fans, especially that age of people that are like 40 to 50, maybe 35 to 45, or 35 to 55. They are a very stubborn group of people, and you piss them off, they won't come back just based on principle alone. So, yes, I feel like for a very long time, NASCAR was out of touch with its own fans, and they've pissed off so many people that it's difficult now to get those guys back. I don't know if they can. I don't know if it's possible. It's definitely not going to be a quick fix. I can guarantee that.
Right.
Because viewership this last race was down 41% compared to last year. Now, that was Fox versus FS1.
And, still, the women's final championship game, which was the most viewed of all time, was a part of that was a big factor. Let's be real.
This was
and it's just gonna hurt NASCAR viewership the fact at the same time. And that's bad luck for NASCAR, as far as like NASCAR centric view, because Caitlin Clark for Iowa was the big draw there. She's a once in a generation player in women's basketball. No, you're fine.
Not to interrupt you here, but what did you hear about the entire lead up to that women's basketball game? All you heard about was Caitlin Clark. All you saw was her. I can't tell you the last time I saw a NASCAR commercial. I can't tell you the last time they made NASCAR look exciting on a commercial, because these commercials are, we got a race coming up at Richmond this week. Nothing exciting. These guys, none of these drivers, it goes back to these guys have no fucking personality. These guys
I literally was thinking about the time Tony Stewart threw a helmet at Matt Kenseth at Bristol. Like, that's what we need. And that's what we need our advertising to be. But that shit was hilarious. It was not only was hilarious, but it was real drama on the fucking track. Like, it was so cool, and it gets people talking. And it wasn't like there's a very, I'll probably get flamed for this part, but there's a very prominent section of NASCAR fandom, or racing fandom, I should say, that's anti we shouldn't use crashes for promotions. I'm not that. I don't care if you use crashing for promotions. I don't give a shit. That's part of racing. But the good thing about this Tony Stewart throwing his helmet at Matt Kenseth thing was it wasn't the crash that they were promoting. It was the rivalry, the driver passion, the frustration, the helmet throw. That's what they're promoting, and that was cool. So, I have a different feeling when it comes to crashes and how they're promoted. And I will say there can be certain distasteful things, especially when you say, Bubba Wallace, you're penalized for this, but we're going to use it to promo it. That I definitely agree with. I think that's hypocritical. But I don't necessarily have a problem with certain crashes. Or it's part of racing. It's part of the appeal of racing. We wouldn't watch racing if it wasn't dangerous, exciting, door-to-door, hits could happen. Let's be real. Every single one of us would rather see a competitive race where a few cars crash than a single-file train. Every single one of us. And if it means there's big crashes, well, I'm not going to lie. That's part of the allure of racing, is these guys are living on the edge. These guys and girls are living on the edge. They're putting everything they have into this just to try to go faster than somebody else, and it's bad fucking ass. It's badass. And so I don't have a problem with promoting this, that, or the other, as long as it's not done in like completely poor, horrendous, horrible taste. And I'll call it out if it is. I thought if you're going to say Bubba Wallace is getting suspended, you can't really promote that then, the crash. But to your point about Caitlin Clark, that's all we saw. And it was the big story, and it was everything. I didn't watch the women's final. It's not because I wasn't interested. I was just more interested in NASCAR. That's who I am. Mm-hmm. I was very interested in the women's final. But I decided to just focus on NASCAR, especially because I hadn't made any bets going into the race, and I really wanted to focus on live betting and see what kind of edges I could get there. I thought it was a great race live bet. Obviously, it didn't work out for me. I would have been profitable if I hadn't live bet the race. Instead, I lost a little bit, but that's fine. I'm very happy with how it turned out. But that's why NASCAR rating was down. I would say in large part, station moves, other things going on. But I really hope, to kind of wrap up this whine about it, that IndyCar itself gets a boost from how exciting this Texas race was. I know at least a couple people on Twitter that I've seen who are NASCAR-centric fans ended up watching the IndyCar race and be like, wow, that was awesome. So, yeah, that's what I hope for. And I hope for that for NASCAR, too. I hope for that for Formula One. I hope we can get to good racing everywhere, because I love good racing. That's why I'm a fan of all the series. I just, a little whine about it on the Formula One stuff. Like, I have not enjoyed a race yet this year in Formula One, and I've watched, whether live or tape delayed, I've watched all of them.
Yeah. Just to wrap up this whine about it, I'm just going to pose this question. When's the last time we had a real rivalry in NASCAR? You could call Denny Hamlin versus Ross Chastain a rivalry, but NASCAR quickly shut that down. Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, NASCAR quickly shut that down. There's people, they're not competing against each other. Like, I want the Dale Earnhardt versus Jeff Gordon years. Give me that, where they rough each other up.
Give me Kurt Busch, Jimmy Spencer.
Yeah. Just give me one rivalry where these guys hate each other. And maybe once every 40 races, so once a year, they hit each other in the face. Give me that. That'll get NASCAR back. Like, when do people talk most about NASCAR? When there's fights, when there's major controversy, when what Ross Chastain did at Martinsville, that's when people talk.
Kyle Busch, Logano, Keselowski, Carl Edwards. You can name a bunch of them. I mean, all those, back in those days, those guys that are all like in their upper 30s now or lower 40s, they all had rivalries with each other. Let's be real. Like, you probably can't name two of the, Harvick and Kyle Busch had one. Kurt Busch and Jimmy Johnson. You could name any two drivers from that era and they probably had a rivalry. And that's part of why NASCAR blew up so big up until about 2008. And then obviously the whole world had a big recession, and that was the start of the decline of NASCAR, and a lot of it sponsor related. But that also was the decline of the personalities too, because once sponsors started to pull out financially because of the financial crisis in 2008, all of a sudden you couldn't have your edge, your personality edge, because you couldn't afford to lose your sponsor because there were very few of them. So it was the start of the vanilla-ing of NASCAR. So I want NASCAR to get back to I don't want to see intentional wrecking at 160 miles an hour. I'm not saying I want Bubba Wallace to left hook Kyle Larson into the outside wall. I think that's terrible. I think what Carl Edwards did to Keselowski in that Xfinity race where he hooked him in the outside wall was terrible. I think what Kes did to Carl Edwards at Talladega, where Edwards flew in the fence because he bounced off Ryan Newman, I thought that was hard racing. That wasn't an intentional. Edwards threw a block. Kes couldn't go below the yellow line per the rules, and he already had his nose under there. That's just hard racing. But for whatever reason, Carl Edwards took umbrage to it and decided to turn it into a thing with Keselowski and literally just intentionally hooked him in the right rear at Atlanta, flipped him into the outside wall. That's terrible. But my point is, I want good, hard racing, and I don't mind if y'all rough each other up. But we got to also find a balance. Let's go back to where now Denny Hamlin has been fined and points penalty for letting go of the steering wheel. Admitting on a podcast, he let go of the steering wheel and bumped Ross Chastain into the wall.
Yeah.
What are we doing here, man? What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Give me rivalries. Give me rivalries that last years, not weeks. I want these guys to hate each other. And that's where you're gonna get.
So whoever wrecks Stephen Malazzi at Martinsville, I'm coming for you.
Exactly. But yeah, that's going to wrap up this week's Wine About It. As always, check out RotoBaller wines. You can get them shipped to you. I put the link in the YouTube description. I put the link on Twitter. You buy a case, you save 10%, and shipping's like $20 or something. I was wrong last episode. There is a shipping charge. But check them out. If you don't want them shipped, you can get them in stores, Kroger, Meijer, Walmart, other big stores, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia. Please try these wines. They are a great sponsor for this podcast and allow us to sit here and complain. But going on now, we are talking about... I don't want to talk about this long. I don't either. I want to get to bed early tonight because we're recording this earlier than normal.
We are. So that way I can go out and have a drink and dinner.
Yeah.
Usually
Bristol
I eat
Dirt
after the podcast, but it's like a quick shovel into my mouth and then go to bed. I'll actually get to have a real dinner.
That's good.
Bristol Dirt.
Bristol Dirt. So we've had 2 races on Bristol Dirt. Both have been shit shows. I can't think of any other word to describe
in
this
way different ways too. Completely different ways than how they were shit shows.
So let's get this right. Like, we're to the point where teams are having issues just finishing the race because they can't figure out how to keep fucking dirt out of their engine or dirt off the windshield. Like, that's how much of a joke this. Why is this Why is this actually a race? Why is this a points paying race? I don't get it.
I'd be all for it if it was an exhibition like the Clash. Honestly, I'd be way more for it if it was an exhibition. But this is a points-paying race.
And
why isn't the Clash a points-paying race then? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
It actually should be. But, so we've had 2 races
more
here.
So than Dirt. I don't necessarily think it should be, but more so than Dirt. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. 100%. Two winners so far. Joey Logano the first year, Kyle Busch last year after Chase Briscoe pulled a Chase Briscoe and wrecked him in, I think it was Tyler Reddick on the last. I was in New Orleans on vacation during the last time, so I didn't even watch the race last year. But Joey Logano now first and third in the 2 races here at Bristol Dirt. Tyler Reddick second and 7th. Ryan Blaney 5th and 8th. Daniel Suarez had a great first year here, finished 4th, led the most laps. Who else has 2 top 10s in their starts?
Guess who led the second most laps, I think it was last year? Daniel Suarez.
Yeah. So yeah, he did. He led 58 laps last year. Chase Elliott's the other one with 2 top 10s in the 2 Bristol Dirt races. So yeah, Suarez, I mean, you got to keep an eye on him. He surprised the hell out of everybody back in 2021 because, he led 58 laps in that race. He led 64 last year.
Yeah.
But 2021, he surprised the hell out of everybody because if you remember, that was Trackhouse's first year, I believe.
Yeah, and they weren't the Trackhouse; they were last year for sure.
And he wasn't doing anything that year, and then all of a sudden he goes out and he looks like he can legitimately win that race. And then last year,
he could have,
pretty much proved that wasn't really a fluke. Led 64 laps. Chase Briscoe again could have won that race. He won the second stage. Kyle Larson won the first stage. But all eyes, I think, are going to be on Kyle Larson. I think it's going to be a lot of the same. We look at the betting odds where books have opened. Kyle Larson, the favorite. Best you can get him at is plus 550. Yeah. Tyler Reddick plus 650, Christopher Bell plus 700. Got Chase Briscoe at 10-1, Kyle Busch 12-1, Logano 14-1, Byron 13-1. I don't know about you. I have no interest in betting this race. I didn't have a single bet on this race last year, and I don't plan on having a single bet on this race this year. I cannot put into words how much I hate Bristol Dirt. This is not enjoyable for me. If I have literally anything else to do on Sunday night, because this is a Sunday night race, I will do that instead of watch this race. This is how much I hate this race.
The Masters are wrapping up on Sunday.
Yeah, and this isn't me being dramatic. I hate this race. I get no enjoyment from watching this race. And like I said, I'm already telling you guys next week's Wine About It for me is going to be about dirt racing in general, but these cup cars being on dirt is absolutely garbage. No interest in it. I don't care who wins. I don't care what happens. If there's a fight, then I'll get interested. Like I said, that's how you're going to bring fans back. But as far as me as a fan as a NASCAR fan this week, call me a boomer. I ain't watching this shit.
I don't hate dirt racing, but I think it needs to be the right kind of dirt racing. And for me, cup cars on Bristol Dirt is not it. Plus, you fucking took away a Bristol concrete race. For what fucking reason? I understand fans weren't coming to this version of Bristol because there's 2 Bristol races a year and they were all going to the night race. If they had to pick one of the 2, then just pick another race then. Just make one Bristol race a year. Make it as important as a crown jewel. I mean, it already arguably is a crown jewel, Bristol night race. Everybody says it's potentially one of the crown jewels, especially after Brickyard 400 went away. Because we certainly know the fucking Indy road course is not a fucking crown jewel. Just no. I don't mind trucks on dirt, especially Knoxville or Eldora. Like, that stuff makes sense. World of Outlaws makes sense. All that stuff, that kind of dirt racing makes sense. We don't have to be fans of it, but I very much understand and even can enjoy that kind of dirt racing. And I know I'm going to be called a whatever, I don't understand grassroots racing, whatever. I don't give a shit. Like, I enjoy those kinds of racing, but I don't go out of my way to watch them. I'm not, there's also this movement of, like, support your local track, your local short track, your local dirt track, and good, do that. Yes, absolutely. that's not who I am. I want to watch NASCAR Cup Series racing, and I don't want to watch it on Bristol Dirt. I just don't. I will. But I don't want to. And I actually think this isn't... I wouldn't normally think this is the worst race to bet in the world, because I think you can find some edges if you know what you're looking for. But the books have been very good this year. The books themselves have been very good this year. And they were very good with the opening odds on this race as well. And I do think there's value. I've seen other NASCAR experts, think there isn't value out there, or they don't. I actually think there is. I haven't made any bets yet, but it's not because I'm not going to. I think I'm saving them for Running Hot podcasts, or other content. Like Jordan, we're content creators, so I have to give out content. Right. My job is to be a predictive analyst first and foremost. So even if I do zero content, that's fine, as long as I'm creating predictions, creating models, creating projections, etc. But obviously, Action Network is also a media company. That's where Action Network. And so my other part of my job is to create content. So I want to save a couple bets for Running Hot. I want to save a bet maybe for Green Dot Daily that we have. And you and I, we used to give a lot more bets on the podcast. We've transitioned over the year and a half, 2 years we've been doing this to more like not a talk show, but just a conversational thing about NASCAR with a fantasy and betting focus. But so I'm not sitting here being like, I have to jump at all these odds. I don't think there's anything I'm jumping at. So I agree with all the other content creators, NASCAR content creators, very good ones, in that regard. But I actually do think there's value this week from a Bristol Dirt perspective. So not excited for the racing product. Kind of excited for the betting side of it. And 100% of any profits I make this week is going to our sponsorship of Stephen Malassi for Rome Brothers Racing. So obviously, if I make any money betting this weekend, yeah, exactly. If we make any money betting this week, and you all will see, I always have my Google sheet where I track everything, because some bets we can't track in the Action app. Make sure you're following Jordan and myself in the Action app. But any profits I make this weekend, and my unit size, 1 unit, $100. So you'll be able to see perfectly clear on my spreadsheet. All that is going to go towards the sponsorship of Stephen Malassi to run the truck at Martinsville.
Nice. That's awesome. So yeah, now I'm rooting for your stuff to hit. But
you were rooting for it to fail before? No, I'm just kidding.
As far as like you said, you don't like cup cars on dirt. You think trucks work on dirt. I'm just not a huge dirt fan. Like I literally live 20 minutes away from Eldora Speedway. That's how close I live to Eldora. It is one road away from me. Mm-hmm. It's one road south, and I hit Eldora Speedway. I can't tell. I am more excited when I go to Eldora to go back to the campground and get even more hammered drunk than I am to go and sit in the grandstands and watch a damn race. And that's just me. Like clearly, I enjoy racing, but I have never went to Eldora and been like, I'm amazed by this racing. So, maybe it's just me. I don't know. But I just had to get that in there. Like, it's not like I've never been to a dirt race in my life. Like, I literally live very close to Eldora, which is one of the best dirt track races or tracks in the country. I just have no interest in, and like I said, I think this race.
I think that's both
off.
of us. Like, we don't really have a ton of interest in analyzing this race. We just don't. We don't have a ton of interest in how we're going to break this down for DFS or how we're going to bet on it. Like, I will have my bets. That's my job. I'll do the 100% goddamn best I can to find the best bets available. And I already have very, very strong opinions and ideas on that. But I'll save that for Running Hot. I'll save that for Green Dot Daily. I'll save that for my articles. I'll save that for Action app and for Discord, those kinds of things. But you and I, as a conversational podcast about NASCAR, I don't think you and I have a ton of we want to talk Bristol Dirt. We just don't.
No,
it's not actually.
That was
thing.
my tweet. that was my tweet today. I was like, hey, I want questions. What do you guys want us to talk about on this podcast? Hashtag Bristol Dirt sucks. Hashtag please have us talk about anything other than Bristol Dirt.
Exactly.
I
was telling Malazi, I was like, I'm pretty sure our podcast is going to be titled like, we're sponsoring a NASCAR plus Bristol Dirt. Or something like that.
Plus Bristol Dirt preview, because Larson's the favorite. Like, just looking at these odds, like you said, books are sharp this year. They're on it 100%.
Oh yeah, they're doing great. Even this past weekend with Richmond, they were down on, like, not down. They were high on Keselowski, where they brought his odds down. I couldn't bet Keselowski. People are betting Keselowski 25-1. 28-1. I loved Keselowski going into Richmond. Could not bet him. And I know I ended up betting him live at 20-1, but that's with extra data. That's with seeing him running in the top 6 or 8 the whole race. We didn't know that coming in. So I guess I sound hypocritical there, and that's totally fair. I'm fine with that. But I would never have bet him 28-1 coming in. It's kind of like what PJ said a couple weeks ago with Coda. Like, I'd rather miss out a guy in 16-1, but then get him 12-1 after seeing practice, that kind of thing. It's the same deal, but you're actually seeing him in race conditions now. It's not even practice. It's like we get to see him moving through the field. That's why I like live betting that. But the books have gotten not that they haven't been sharp, etc., but like they're on it this year. They're seeing the things we are seeing. The sharp bettors are seeing, and it's making it harder. Yet we're still all having, like, I don't think I've seen a content creator out there that we follow, respect, whatever, engage with in community that hasn't had a good year so far. But it's definitely not getting any easier.
Right. Yeah, the only, like, looking, and I have to give Ryan from My Fantasy Race a shout out here, like, typically, as I normally do.
Yep. Always.
I will say this week, my content is not going to be good. Because I don't care about this race. I'm obviously I'm going to put in the time to do my normal stuff, but I just know that I don't care enough about this, and I'm not, like, this race is so specific. Like, we have no comparisons to use outside of Bristol Dirt races, and then if you bring in the Truck Series races, which not every Cup Series driver has ran these Truck Series races, and stuff like that. But it's so specific. We have nothing to compare this stuff to. And then, as I said, the first 2 races at Bristol Dirt have had very, very huge issues with them. So, but looking down, the betting odds, about the only guy that I could just like when I go through and I'm looking at odds and I'm like, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. That kind of looks a little off. One guy that looks off to me is William Byron, 13-1. I feel like I could, if I had to bet someone, and I'm not going to bet Larson because Larson is such a favorite at plus 550. I feel like Byron could be a little bit of value there at 13-1, just because of how strong he is. His crew chief has a dirt racing background, and Byron did finish. He had a strong race here at Bristol Dirt in 2021, 4.9 average running position. So. If I'm gun to my head, have to bet somebody, I'm going to take Byron at 13-1, but I have no interest in betting this race.
So, here's the thing I love about you, about us. We'll just be like, look, we have to provide our content. Like you were saying, you're going to do your thing. You're going to do your projections. You're going to give, and you're going to do the best job you can do at it. But your passion for it isn't there. So you're like, check out Ryan at iFantasy Race. Check out Ryan at iFantasy Race. I'm raising my hand right here. Like, do that.
Yeah.
Ryan is the ultimate grinder of everything. I don't understand, and you and I have mentioned this on the podcast multiple times a year. We don't understand how he does what he does. He's so good at what he does. He's so passionate about it.
Absolutely insane.
Honestly, the hardest worker in NASCAR content creation is Ryan from iFantasyRace.com. Sign up, subscribe to iFantasyRace.com. I've zero qualms with ever saying that, because you will get the best information out there in terms of, this, that, and the other, practice notes, random stats, asterisks. His asterisk, I can't even say that word, Mark report is really interesting, because you're like, oh yeah, that did happen at that race 2 years ago, and it might not show up in the box score because I'll be like, oh yeah, the guy finished 15th and whatever, and he'll be like, oh yeah, that guy finished 15th, but his X-rays, like all this stuff that he does is very good, and you and I are both the kind of people where we're like, we have no problem admitting when, like, we just don't care. We don't give a fuck. We don't, whatever. Like, but go check this guy. Go check that guy out. It doesn't matter. Because we want to help the listeners to stacking Dennys. So if we can point you in the right direction, we will. Because the right direction isn't always going to be us. Don't get me wrong. I'm going hard on this race in terms of analysis, in terms of what I think, because I actually think there's a lot of good angles here. I'm not interested necessarily in the race itself, but I am interested in the betting side of this race. So a little different from you there, Jordan, in that regard. And I do agree with your Byron thing. For me, to go along with our point, Martin Truex Jr. opened 30-1 at Westgate. I was very interested in that. I honestly don't know if he's still 30-1 at Westgate or not. I haven't looked because I feel like when things balance out, where all the odds will settle in at that point, that's going to be when I'm creating my content anyway for my bets that I'm going to make is Running Hot, Green Dot Daily for Action Network. I'll be on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, over the weekend, etc. So I'm just going to let things settle out to where they'll be, and I'll find my content from there as far as bets. But I still have very strong opinions. So I literally haven't looked at odds since they dropped on Monday with Westgate and then Caesars. People were messaging about DraftKings today. Haven't looked, honestly. I've not looked. Part of it was being too excited about this sponsorship opportunity, so I've been much more focused on that, trying to make that happen. And then cleaning my office because RotoDoc has finally moved out of my office. So, other priorities in life as well, but, it's Bristol Dirt. I'm not there as far as it being like something that I have to bet the odds right away when they open and whatever. No. I don't think practice is going to help me either. I know. No. I've seen people tweet like, well, I'll wait for practice. I don't give a shit. Practice ain't going to help me. Practice is not going to help me one bit for Bristol Dirt. Hell no.
Because just think of how much the track's going to change over that course of practice. Like
more than Richmond, and Richmond changes a lot.
Yeah, people don't realize how much dirt tracks change. Like it's crazy. But yeah, you look at there's some crazy odds out there. Like you look at BetMGM, they have Austin Cindric at 150-1, and they have Todd Gilliland at 100-1. Like, so it's one of those weeks where. If you don't know what's going on, you're going to be like, what the hell? When you look at these odds, why can't we get some of these odds for like Daytona? Because they have Corey LaJoie at 1,000-1, Eric Almirola at 200-1, just like some 5,000-1 for BJ McLeod and Cody Ware. What in the world was that?
I don't know. My dog's probably breaking stuff.
But switching back and going back to Ryan from iFantasy Race and his asterisk mark report.
Impossible word to say.
Yeah. Just as an example, he has a report for last year's Bristol Dirt race. And this is something I wouldn't have remembered. Like I said, I didn't watch the race, but even if I did, I probably wouldn't have remembered this. Austin Dillon showed top 5 potential last year at Bristol Dirt, finished an asterisk mark 31st in the race, finished 4th in stage 1, was running 5th with 50 laps to go, but then blew an engine, which ended his race, leading to his 31st. You're not going to get information like that in a typical report. You'll get the, a typical race report. You'll get the 4th in stage 1, but you're not going to get the running 5th with 50 laps to go. You're not going to get that report. So yeah, it's definitely check Ryan out. And I don't like. I'm with you on this race. I think I misspoke earlier when I said my stuff's going to be shit this week. I didn't mean that. I'm still going to go through my normal process of everything I do. Right. I'm just saying it's much more likely to be shit this week than it is other weeks. Because it's exactly. It's just this race sucks. we don't have much to go off of, and it's
not
the passion's not there. It's
it's not a fun.
Like I had so much fun.
You and I love to do what we do, but this week it's gonna be more work than we always say, like, if you love what you do, it's not work. This week's gonna be work.
Yeah, it is. I had a ton of fun last weekend, even without practice and qualifying. I had a ton of fun breaking down Richmond and figuring that out. I love Richmond. I love short flat tracks. I hate Bristol Dirt, and I'm dreading doing this content, which is going to it's going to end up being less quality content than normal for me. It's just the name of the game. That's what happens. So
yeah, we're all human. We're all human, and we all have our things we like and dislike, and things that are especially stuff that we can whine about.
Yeah, exactly. But getting to let's just go straight and get into our picks to win, because that's where we're at. Who is your pick to win? I'll let you go first, since I believe I went first the last 2 weeks. You ended up with Kyle Busch last week at Richmond as your pick to win. He finished 14th. I was on a 2-race streak of 14th place finishes, ironically, with Bowman and Larson at Atlanta and Coda. I had Harvick last week at Richmond, who came home 5th. Who's your pick to win?
So there's going to be I shouldn't say a lot of chaos, but there's going to be a lot of randomness maybe at Bristol Dirt, but at the same time, it's hard for me to get past Larson, Reddick, Bell, Briscoe, even Logano, Byron, maybe a Kyle Busch, Chastain, those kinds of guys. So it's going to come from the favorites, and because I honestly don't give a shit, I'm just going to pick somebody. So I'm going to say Christopher Bell gets his first win.
Nice.
I think honestly, Bristol Dirt has shown it to be, so it's hard to pass. Like, actually, so I wanted to talk about Daniel Suarez's laps led last year, because 2 years ago, the first Bristol Dirt race, that just came off raw speed. But last year, he kind of strategized his way, and it became really hard to pass. I don't know if we're going to see the same thing, because it always depends on how the track is prepared. But Suarez last year, his laps led were very much a strategy laps led. But what I do know is that the first year, there was a lot of tire wear, and the first year of Bristol Dirt correlated with a lot of higher tire wear stuff. So if we see that again, and knowing which team's been really good at higher tire wear this year, it to me is JGR, and so I'd have to say Christopher Bell then. So Christopher Bell is my pick to win. And I don't think it's based off any other reason than, he's been fucking good. He's really good at dirt. And JGR has been on a higher tire wear. I don't even know if it's going to be higher tire wear, but just feels like the right pick.
Yeah, I cannot agree or disagree, because I'm just not there.
Exactly.
But I want to take the easy way out here and go Larson, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go William Byron. I'll go.
I had a hunch that was coming. Once you said, like, if I had to bet somebody, gun in my head, I was like, yeah, I think that's where Jordan's going.
Yeah. And the only reason I didn't is because I didn't want the same, my pick to win to be the same as my random fantasy racing driver, which is Kyle Larson this week. Now the question is, who is dock blocked? Because I think something.
The guy that's dock blocked is actually air quote good at Bristol Dirt for himself, and that's Cody Ware. I guess this is one of his better tracks because everybody else is shitty here.
Yeah, he survives 26th and 32nd in his 2 starts here, but
which is flattering.
What happened with your random fantasy racing driver last week, by the way?
Well, Jordan, you mentioned you got Kyle Larson this week. Kyle Larson just so happened to be dock blocked last week, and of course, in true dock block fashion, he crashed on pit road. Total hit on pit road, bent his bumper in, fender in. And man, that car it couldn't drive after that. Until they fixed it, he won the damn race. So my second ever, and I didn't even realize it until I was setting it up for our podcast. I've been so distracted with everything this week. Second ever random fantasy win. I now have more wins than Daniel Hemrick. I now have more wins than Matt Benedetto. And I now have as many wins as the two of them combined.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious. Oh, man.
Let's go.
Congratulations.
My two wins, my two career random fantasy wins are both Hendrick drivers, by the way. Alex Bowman at Vegas last year and Kyle Larson at Richmond. Which, funny enough, right? Like, Richmond was my home track growing up. Vegas is my home track now. So those are my two random fantasy wins as well.
That's funny. You have surpassed me in random fantasy racing wins.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we were tied. I only have one, and it was back in 2019.
Yeah, I had gone forever without a win, and then got one in 2022, 3 years after your win. And then I got one again now. So now you're like
back to back.
Yeah, back-to-back years. Now you're the guy who needs to get a win.
Yeah. So updating my random fantasy racing, I am now 181st on the underdog standing. So I'm getting closer and closer to the top 100 there. I had Michael McDowell last week, so that actually helped me. Like, I thought he was going to be bad, ended up finishing 6th. Like we talked about earlier. But I got Kyle Larson for Bristol Dirt. So it'll be interesting to see if I can get my second win and tie you again and we can get back to tied. Because, obviously Larson's a favorite this week. A lot of people expecting him to win, especially with how Hendrick is running this year. So
it's always weird when you get a guy like Michael McDowell at a track that he hasn't necessarily been great at when he finishes 6th.
Yeah.
Because we were like, man, this could be another good, underdog week for you this past week, and it actually didn't end up being a good underdog week for you. And
I was
based off your pick now, it doesn't look like a good underdog week for you either.
Yeah, I was looking at the overall leader of random fantasy racing, Kylie 185-27366, and I'm
name bunch of numbers like we see on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm assuming that this is a female, so I'm going to say she also had Michael McDowell, but she's leading. She's leading this year. She has an average finish of 5.1, 6 top 10s, 4 top 5s, and 2 wins in the 7 races. But very unconventional grouping or picks of drivers. So she had Stenhouse in the Daytona 500. He obviously won. Austin Dillon at Fontana, who finished 9th. Bubba Wallace at Vegas, who finished 4th. And then Byron, she got Byron at Phoenix, who he's obviously been very good. Keselowski at Atlanta.
No.
Chastain at
Cindric at Atlanta.
Cindric. Why did I just? Oh my God.
Yeah, because the number 2 car.
I just equated. Yeah, I just equated the 2 to Keselowski. He hasn't been in that car for a bit. So, boy. And then Chastain at Coda, and then Michael McDowell at Richmond, which we talked about.
Yeah, it hasn't been
awful.
Only one Hendrick driver, no JGR drivers, one Penske driver, but it was Cindric. So for those results, for those drivers, I should say, these are incredible results. Imagine if again, assuming she gets Kyle Larson a bunch, or Denny Hamlin, or Martin Truex Jr., or Christopher Bell. Like, this is a very solid first place.
Yeah. I mean, an average finish of 5.1 and a full 14 points above second place in the standings there. But she's got Chastain again this week for Bristol Dirt.
That's not a bad pick at all.
No, Influencer Cup standings. But by the way, Chastain, that's another one that I was a little bit surprised. 22-1 over there on BetMGM. Might be enough to get me to bite, but you are fourth
I agree with that.
in the Influencer Cup standings over on Random Fantasy Racing.
Is
that where you were last week?
It was. I was 40 ahead, and now I'm 41 ahead at this point. Bar Visuals is making a comeback. If you look at the picks this week, you just click on picks for Bristol Dirt. I think. Oh no, that was the week prior. Bar Visuals was like right up there with like the first picker, so like it goes out on Twitter, then everybody grabs your link or whatever. But they're definitely making a charge up the leaderboard. And Bar Visuals is very cool. They do a lot of NASCAR photography, I believe, or racing photography. So definitely give them a follow on Twitter at BARR, Bar Visuals, VISUALS. But we got to stay ahead of them. And maybe part of the sponsorship deal should be that Malazzi promotes my random fantasy for the rest of the year.
That's funny. That's awesome.
Because it's an influencer cup, and I mean, we're if we're sponsoring, we're a little bit of an influence, I guess, on his racing career. So, a little quid pro quo there, if you want to get in the whatever definitions terms. But no, we have Jordan and I have nothing in the sponsorship other than it's just fucking cool and it'd be fun, and it's a good way to help a friend, a good person, and honestly, it's just fucking cool, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I opened up your messages this afternoon and I was like, oh, this sounds really cool, and it definitely does. Speaking of Daniel Suarez, you mentioned we mentioned he's led quite a few laps of 2 Bristol Dirt races. He's 25-1 at DraftKings.
Yep. He opened 20 at Westgate, and I was interested, and now he's 25 at DraftKings. So, interested. I definitely want to see where he ends up, when I record my other podcasts, my other shows, etc. for Action Network. Very interested in Truex. He's 25 at DraftKings as well, but opened 30 at Westgate. Like I said, I haven't even looked to see if he's changed. I'm very curious what Circa is going to do. As you know, I'm always on the Circa bandwagon to see what they do, because they're very sharp, but at the same time, and this is not a criticism, this is a very good thing. As sharp as they are, they're very independent on how they set their lines. So it can lead to a few, I wouldn't say mistakes, but maybe oversights or mispriced things, which is good. That's why they're a leader in this industry. And we've seen a lot this week, DraftKings with absolutely horrendous predatory practices. So I'm very glad that Circa will absolutely be glad to set a bad line on a driver or on a basketball game or an NFL game and have it bet right into place, because you know what happens when it gets bet right into place? They can then raise their limits and more people will bet and bet at bigger numbers, and they'll actually end up making money off it. It's the right way to bookmake. So, I always wait to see if Circa will set a bad line, and I don't mean bad in a bad way. I mean bad in a good way, and that's a good bookmaking practice that they do.
Yeah, always very sharp, but definitely nobody is perfect.
Absolutely not.
Nobody's perfect. Yeah, no, absolutely not. Don't let anybody tell you that either.
When people say that Vegas knows, it's always funny because DraftKings doesn't operate in Vegas. FanDuel doesn't operate in Vegas. It's not Vegas, and that's one of my pet peeves. Vegas knows. Most of the people betting on these things are betting on DraftKings or FanDuel or PointsBet or Barstool. None of those are Vegas. Vegas knows is a very old statement, specifically about Vegas books. It's no longer Vegas knows. There's very few and far between. Not even Westgate, which is Superbook now. Superbook operates in Iowa and Colorado, among other states. Circa has books in Iowa and Colorado and at least one other state. I can't remember. It's no longer Vegas. So stop saying Vegas knows. Plus, they don't know.
I think it's just
like you said, they all make mistakes.
Yeah, I think it's just a general term that everybody uses now. It's kind of like Kleenex, or Q-tips.
I agree with that, but at the same time,
I understand. I'm comparing household products with sports books right now. But that's the best. It's the best I got.
Well, at least your Kleenex are not predatory to your nose.
Yeah, that whole thing going around with DraftKings is I don't like that at all. And I know that's getting pretty good. That's getting good legs there on social, but I still don't feel like it's getting strong enough legs, because that's
and speaking of legs, and this actually is very funny to say legs, because our state legislators need to be notified of these practices, especially if you're in a DraftKings state. And I know Greg Mathern does a good job of taking note of these really bad situations and bringing it up to his legislatures, his politicians in his state, and it doesn't matter. Honestly, political affiliation doesn't seem to matter with sports betting, I've noticed. There's pretty much 50-50 in terms of like air quote red states and blue states, that are legalized and that are non-legalized betting states. So it's all about just making sure if you want to fight for your state or for your betting abilities, sure, you can do it from the sidelines, but it's going to make a lot more impact if you do it in person. I'm lucky I don't have to do it in person, right? I live in a state and bordering a state that it's completely, totally legal, and, obviously there's certain predatory practices even they can do here, but by and large, it's not something I have to fight for. But promote it. Try to not promote it, but make your lawmakers know that you want to bet and you want to bet fairly and you want to, because let's be real, gambling can be and is an addiction for some people. And so we definitely cannot let them get harmed, and we definitely cannot let them get harmed by it. But at the same time, for other people like you and I and others in our circle, gambling is a thing we do, A, because we love it, and B, because we're good at it. It is a source of income. And that shouldn't be limited in the wrong ways. I understand if it, blackjack style, you're counting cards, we don't want your action. I understand that. But DraftKings can do a lot better than be like, Jordan, you're limited on your NASCAR bets. We don't want your action. They could use your action to make themselves better, like Circa does. Right now, Caesars uses my action to make their lines sharper. I swear to God, more than half the NASCAR bets I make, they instantly move the line, but I'm not limited. And that is a good thing that Caesars does. It's like what Circa does. It is a good thing. When they take your action, they'll take it at whatever size you want to bet it at, barring anything ridiculously crazy, because all books have limits, especially early on. But as long as they apply those limits to everyone and they adjust accordingly and then set new lines, etc., that is a good bookmaker. And that's what Caesars has been doing with my bets in particular lately. And I respect that. I think that's good.
Yeah. Anything to, like I said, these books are not perfect. They don't know everything, and neither do we. So, always getting better.
The 2-hour mark beer here.
Nice.
But I'm out of stuff. I just, a little random.
Yeah, I am.
Jordan, you and I never go on random tangents on this show. I'm sorry about that.
No, never. But Sunday night, Bristol Dirt, the Food City Dirt Race. If you watch it, I hope you enjoy it. If you bet on it, good luck. If you play DFS, good luck. We'll be back next week.
One last plug. If you can, help donate to the sponsorship of Stephen Malazzi for Rome Brothers Racing to race at Martinsville. The Stacking Dennys sponsorship. Jordan will put the details in the description of the YouTube video. And I know it's a very, I guess, trust-oriented thing, but it's 100% a real thing. And, Jordan and I have contributed a decent chunk of money each to make this happen, and we're very excited about it. And I think it's just something fun, and it's something you and I both were very excited about when Stephen approached us, when Malazzi approached us, and we found a way to actually work it out and make it happen. So it's a thing. It's happening. It's 100% happening. You will see Stacking Dennys on a NASCAR truck in some way, shape, or form for Martinsville. So if you have the ability to, once again, Jordan and I are asking you, please do so. But certainly don't feel obligated. If you feel like we've given you entertainment, help you win some bets, if you want to pledge a percentage of your winnings from Bristol Dirt, whatever. Anything you can do, it helps, because Rome Brothers Racing is a small team. They're trying to make their way up the ladder in NASCAR and run some races. And we want to help a good person live his dream.
Yeah. And, So like I said, or like Nick said, I'll put the details out. I'm sure Nick will put the details out. And hopefully we can make something happen for them and we see something cool happen on the racetrack, and they make the race and run well. Like I said, finished 22nd at Mid Ohio last year, and hey,
led one lap.
Anything can happen.
I don't care if the one lap lead was under caution. I don't care. I don't care if it came because of pit stops. Steve Malazzi can always say he led a lap in a NASCAR race. How cool is that?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Bristol Dirt this week with Easter, and then we're on to Martinsville, which I'm sure we'll talk more about this truck situation as well before we get back to regular racing in the Cup Series. But race number 8. This season's trucking along. Before you know it, I mean, Martinsville race number 9. That's 25% of this season. It feels like it's flying by, but hey, we're having fun. Hopefully this race this weekend is good. Like I said, good luck if you're betting. Good luck if you're playing DFS. We'll talk to you next week when we go over Martinsville. See you guys.